There are 3 stages to this abuse, and each one of them is carried out with precision and perfect timing. I do speak about them often, but it's a topic that comes up a lot. And with the numbers increasing in the divorce sanctuary over on Facebook, women are joining, saying that they're understanding the love bombing through the group, and it's helping them from being hoovered back in. So I thought it might be helpful to go back over this cycle and help people understand what is happening, to help them see the patterns and to help them on their journey of healing these wounds as they prepare to emotionally divorce the abuser as well as physically divorce them. I will put a link below for the group that I run. It's free and it's over on Facebook. Hello, I'm Elizabeth Goddard from the Divorce Sanctuary. I'm author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing the original wounds, healing trauma bonds, and more importantly, emotionally divorcing from the abuser. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. As I said in my introduction, there are 3 stages of abuse, and each one is carried out by the abuser with perfect timing for the best impact. Idealization, also known as love bombing, which is the gifts, the days out, weekends away, meals, they are your soulmate. They future fake. You get constant communication, long phone calls, constant attention. They are letting you know in this stage their expectations of you. And there's the devaluation stage, and this is the put downs, the comparing to others, the words that don't match their actions. They start eroding your personality, destroying your confidence, smashing any boundaries that you have. And then there's the discard. And this can happen many times during the relationships where they withdraw, they disappear. It might be the silent treatment, or they become very secretive. The cognitive dissonance and mind-fuckery. And you might be in the throes of confusion, either at the end or nearly at the end of an emotionally abusive relationship. And this might have been going on for years, or it might have happened years ago and you still haven't got over it. Do people suddenly change overnight? Have you woken up and discovered a stranger in your bed? And do you find that you're now walking around on eggshells, too frightened to do or say anything for the fear of waking the monster inside them? Perhaps you've woken up to discover that you're living with Jekyll and Hyde. I'm not sure whether people wake up and look at the person beside them and realise that they've changed, or that something that they've noticed over a period of time and it gets to the point that they no longer fit together properly. There are couples that have been together from a really young age and they stay together because they fit. They grow spiritually and emotionally at a similar rate. Other couples realise that they want different things. What they thought life would be like when they were 30 isn't actually what they want when they get to 50. And their partner is happy to stay in that life. If you're in a relationship with an emotionally healthy person, they want you to move on. They want to help you do that. They want to get you closure, the closure that you need. They know that they might be hurting their partner, but they have a healthy self-esteem and they can take responsibility for that hurt and for their own needs. They will help their partner or ex-partner with the information that they require. And if there's property and finances to be settled, this will be done fairly. And if you've experienced emotional abuse, this is something that you will not get. You won't get the closure, and nothing about this will be fair. You might now be trapped in a trauma bond that you need to untangle from. And it might be that the trauma bond has kept you trapped for so long. Because they are unhealthy emotionally, they don't want you to have closure. They will see the separation and the divorce as a bonus round for them. Although they will claim to everyone and anyone who will listen to their victim's story that they just want this to be over with, they don't. They ideally would like you there, somewhere in the background, ready to leap into action when they send you a message or call you, ready with attention to provide for them. They play with your emotions and they know exactly what to say to get a reaction from you. You were their project, And like any good student, they studied hard to understand you and your needs. They saw you were able to provide them with something that they couldn't get from someone else. They upgraded to you. You might have been able to provide them with a home, or you might have had more money. You may have provided them with better attention, or you might have had better contacts for them to upgrade their life. They needed to secure you as quickly as possible to ensure that you didn't escape. And once they'd set their eyes on you, they've got their eyes on the prize, they become very committed to winning. You very possibly had a message at the beginning of the day and again at the end to ensure that they were the first thing that you thought about. And you believe the same, that you're the first thing that they're thinking about. And the same happened at night. And the reason it hurts so much is due to the chemicals that they've triggered within you, breaking down your boundaries. So during these relationships, you will have gone through the cycle of abuse, also known as love bombing. And this is where you might have received gifts or days out, weekends away, meals. They're your soulmate. They future fake. You receive constant messages and long phone calls, constant attention. And they were letting you know what their expectations were. And they follow this by the devaluation, these put downs, comparing you to others. Their words don't actually match their actions. They're eroding your personality, destroying your confidence, and at the same time, they're smashing your boundaries. And then the discard. And as I said, this can happen in many times over the relationship, whether it's they withdraw, whether they go silent and secretive. They might disappear for a period of time. And the damage caused puts you in a state of confusion because you have no idea that this abuse is taking place. And like Chinese water torture, it happens very, very slowly and it turns you insane. But you were targeted, you were picked and groomed, and it was all done so very subtly. And I want you to hold on to this thought. You fell in love with yourself. As they are the students and they're studying for, say, an exam, everything you said and you did was watched and noted. They asked you questions. They tested you at a later date. In fact, they may still be testing you now, as they know how to trigger you. And particularly if you're going through a divorce with them, they will use this bank of knowledge against you. You might have heard statements like, we have so much in common, or we have the same hopes and dreams, we share the same insecurities, we're soulmates. I've never felt like this about anyone in my life. You're so beautiful. It might have felt like you were looking in the mirror, so really part of you fell in love with yourself. But you might not feel like this now. You might be in so much pain and believe this is all your fault, wondering what you did wrong and how you can get back to that place, that pedestal that they'd placed you on. And I'm going to repeat this again. They listened and mirrored what was important to you. And then they repeated it back as if it was their own. And as part of that process, they began not only to take over your life, but also your future. They trickled just enough of what your future plans were for you to believe that they were really your plans and you were truly soulmates. Wasn't it amazing how similar you really were? They created a bond that later became so hard to let go of. And this is the trauma bond. And this pain runs so deeply throughout your body, it hurts to even move. So you did everything to help them. You received praise for doing it. But there might have been something inside you wondering, who's going to help me? When's it going to be reciprocated? As you were boosted up the higher steps towards the top of the pedestal, you were told that no one had ever understood them in the way that you do. You were compared. They compared you to their exes and you did more and more for them to show how much you did care. And they told you why you were so very special. They compared you to these exes, sending you little warning signals. And what they're doing is actually telling you that their exes are exes for a reason. And if you wanted to stay in the relationship, you needed to behave in a certain way or you would be joining that long line. You didn't stop to question what the common denominator was. And this was due to the bonding that was taking place. So you might have spotted a few red flags, but they very quickly responded, extinguishing those thoughts, and you wrote them off. And over a period of time, they got you hooked, and it was really very simple for them. They had used these techniques before, and they will continue to use them after this relationship. They just refine them over time. But it's a formula that works for them. The cycle of abuse gives them the attention they crave, and they are able to manipulate and control people. And it's all to avoid themselves being abandoned. They use devaluation techniques to start with, just to test you and check their formula is working. And they, as I said, they've perfected this with each relationship. And if they've got it right during the idealization stage, you were more invested in protecting the relationship than you were in protecting yourself. They might have made comments about your intelligence, something that they said they admired you for at the beginning of the relationship, or maybe your abilities in certain areas. Perhaps it's your hopes and dreams. And this might have confused you, so you're questioning them. You were treated with a little bit of gaslighting, and you're told that you were oversensitive or that they were only joking. And you were perhaps left analysing what happened, wondering if this was true. And it was these little subtle put downs, which were followed by some idealization, that changed this chemical reaction in the brain. And you get addicted to the hormone rush that you get from the oxytocin and the dopamine. You're confused. Why has this amazing person said this? And then followed up with a compliment or a gift, and all's forgiven. You felt relief, and you were reinstated on the pedestal they had placed you on. So you ignored your intuition, which was telling you to get out or run away, believing that they were right. And after all, how can someone who believes in you and treats you in this way be wrong? Gradually, the attention you received at the start of the relationship disappears, and you accept any little crumb they throw your way. They use techniques such as triangulation, talking too much about their exes, who went from being devalued when they were being used as a training aid, the example used to ensure that you knew if you want to stay in the relationship and in their life that you better not behave in the same way, to them being idolized in an attempt to make you jealous. Anyone who gives them attention was used to break down your self-esteem. They were used to draw you in closer so that you would fight for their attention. They created triangles with anyone you would see as a threat. They love to turn people against each other. They keep people just far enough apart so that they can't compare anything, but close enough to ensure that they know that they're a threat. And they manufactured these situations to make you jealous or question their fidelity. Everyone has a different quality of supply to them. So just like they poisoned you, they've done the same to everyone else in their lives. The stories they made up about their crazy exes, they're telling about you. And the greater the fear you pose to them out of the relationship, the dirtier the smear campaign. You may have experienced gaslighting, where you were convinced your reality wasn't real. You didn't understand a situation, or your facts were wrong. You may have discovered the lies, and again you were told you were wrong. You'd misunderstood this situation. They weren't flirting. They weren't on a dating website. It was an old account, or their data had been used. And by the time you've collected your thoughts, they've confused you. They've turned the conversation around, and it was all your fault. If you'd given them more attention, they wouldn't have misbehaved. This is about power and control. And this is how the cycle started. Round and around and around it went, a push and pull of emotions. And you were like that child that plays the game with the daisy. They love me not. Only this is a really dangerous game, affecting you on so many different levels. So when you get back to your place of safety, they kick the pedestal away again. You climb it back up, and bam, it's gone. Then discards are thrown into the mixture. They were used to make sure you were fully hooked. The abuser may have disappeared or not called. This could be for hours, days, weeks, months. They might even be contactable, but they make excuses as to why they can't see you. they were too busy, or they were ill and they didn't want to infect you, or a family member was ill. They then reappeared with a gift, a compliment, and hooked you back up to that feeling that you had at the beginning of the relationship, and reaffirming that they did love you. You got your hormone fix and you settled down again. The final discard comes when there's nothing left for them. Perhaps they drained you of all your money and you could no longer support them in the way that you had done, or you had no energy left for them, let alone yourself. Maybe they even spotted another victim who would help them upgrade, someone who had something more to offer, a new source of supply and attention. Because in truth, this is what you've been to them. So this new supply perhaps can provide them with a better quality of life. And you are no longer fit for purpose. And the emotional abuser might have even told you that you're a bipolar, and you might wonder if it's true, but I want you to think back to a time before you met this person, and I bet you were a relatively normal functioning person in society. However, if you do feel you have a mental health condition, please go and seek help. At the end of the relationship, one of two things happens. You either woke up and realised you had to get out of the situation, or they discarded you. When you realise you need to get away, you've woken up to the fact that something is terribly wrong, and you might have taken a step back and looked at the bigger picture, realising that you couldn't live like this anymore. And if you were discarded, you might go crazy, just like the other crazy exes they told you about. In this situation, you do need to be careful. You might prove them right. The triggers, the hoovering, the smear campaign, they're all designed to turn you crazy. But in both scenarios, you have been trauma bonded and you might need to untangle from these chains. And they are playing the victim, and they will paint you in a negative light. This form of abuse penetrates on so many different levels. Your brain has been tricked to believe that what you were told was actually the truth, and it will take time to de-traumatize. For people healing from a toxic relationship, this can cause emotional confusion and anxiety, and they get stuck, never moving on, wondering what the abuser is doing now, if they're still missing them, and waiting at the end of the phone for contact. You might have started to wonder what was happening and believed you couldn't trust your own judgment. And it's also important to remember that you will not get closure, but it's very helpful to see this time to understand what and why you may feel this way, and understand what comes next and the healing that needs to be done. Through my own healing journey, I know the damage emotional abuse leaves in your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, and how hard not only to walk away from these relationships, it's also hard to recover from them. It was a game and I didn't have the rules. Each time I thought I understood them, they were changed. Emotional abuse is a pattern of behaviour where one person uses fear, humiliation, guilt, or manipulation tactics to gain power over another. Unlike physical abuse, it often goes unnoticed, and the damage it causes puts you in a state of confusion. You had no idea it was taking place, and like Chinese water torture, it happened very slowly and turned you crazy. I think it's quite a natural response when you're experiencing hurt or you've been duped by someone, that you hope they'll experience something similar, or that they're treated in a similar way, particularly when you are still in pain. So if you're wanting to know when the emotional abuser is going to experience karma for the damage that they have caused to you, you're either at the beginning of your healing journey or you're on the way to recovery, but you're not fully recovered. The abuser used many tactics to trap you and to gain power and control over you, to gain control over your life and your finances. They manipulated you into believing that they were protecting you when in fact they were abusing you. And if you're not careful, the chains and the rumination and the information can turn you even crazier, wanting to use the tactics they used on you to get them back, or to get back at them. Please believe me when I say this will not end well. You will get hurt. Your wounds are screaming out in pain, so use this time to divorce from them emotionally. When you came out of the toxic relationship, there are so many things that were going on in your body and your mind. And just like a drug addict or someone trying to give up an addiction, you have cravings. Only your craving is a person or hormones. You are trapped and you had no idea that this abuse was going on. Trauma bonding is one of the reasons it's so hard for you to heal from toxic and emotionally abusive relationships. The damage caused puts you in a state of confusion because you had no idea this was abuse and that it was taking place. When they threatened your safety through their bad behaviour, you turned to them for help and protection. You rationalised their behaviour, believing they cared about you. This created further bonding, which was the reason you felt so connected to them. Much like a physical wound, this emotional wound hurts and causes pain during our lives. It might leave us without the emotional coping mechanisms that others may have. And it might be the reason you don't feel whole. By tracking down the wound and allowing it to heal, you can start to feel whole again and break that cycle. But please do remember, if you have been walking around with these wounds for decades, it might not happen within hours. You might have learnt behaviours to protect yourself from further hurt, so you might need to work on changing your thoughts as well. And when you think about the way you react, what was the emotion coming up for you? The abuser who has triggered this reaction is acting like an earworm. They were constantly feeding you with information, undermining you, telling you what to think and how to feel. Who are you and who should you be? What should you be doing? So could it be that you now feel abandoned and very alone? Could it be that you're watching them playing happy families with their new partner and you're in pain? All are valid reasons, but they don't justify causing more pain to yourself. The only thing these wounds are doing is keeping you trapped. They are not allowing you to move on. This pain is very real. I felt that myself, my version of it. I heard so many times that the best vengeance is to walk away and live your best life. And I know it's easier to say than it is to do. When your emotions get carried away and you can't breathe. If you're not careful, the chains and the rumination and the information can turn you even crazier. And you're left wanting or waiting for them to get calmer. Being able to divorce from them emotionally is the aim. So you will need to regroup with your team, and this could be your chance to change the circumstances. Remember, they are doing to your new supply exactly what they did to you. They will have tweaked it. They will have learnt from you. They will have refined it again. But it's going to be the same pattern. So you might be watching and waiting and punishing yourself while all this is happening. But what you're doing is putting your life on hold. What you didn't realise was your life was paused from the very moment you met them. Instead of trying to live the fake future you created with them, mourn the loss of your hopes, your dreams, mourn the loss of the past, the person you thought they were. I'm going to put a link in the description box below to a package that I've put together on grieving the past, the present and the future. You may long for justice, waiting around for this to happen, hoping that you will witness it. So I'm going to ask you to check in and see where this is coming from. What wound is it? Is vengeance a dish best served cold? I'll put a link to this video in the description box below. So put the popcorn back in the cupboard and start thinking about how you can change the rules and how you can change how you feel. You can heal the damage that they have caused. This isn't the end. This really actually is just the beginning. We will never know how much damage they have really caused throughout their lives. They have a false self, a fake reality, and they do this from the ego to protect themselves. They may project a new image, but what is the truth? Is this about you trying to prove to yourself that you aren't crazy? They are gone. They went off into the distance and they lied about you and left you to pick up the pieces. So do it. Pick up the pieces and use this time, the lull before the storm, to repair the damage and create a new life. Start asking yourself some questions like, what is driving the wound? Am I trying to prove to everyone, including myself, that I am not crazy? Am I trying to justify my behaviour? Am I trying to justify why I allowed this to happen to me? And then ask, what were their 3 top lies that they told you? And then once you've written those down, think about, are there any more than 3? And follow this question up, or those statements, with, if they lied so much, why am I believing the stories they told me? What is happening to you while you're waiting for them to get karma? Remember, they will always be trapped, living from drama to drama, claiming they hate it. They live in a state of constant alert, trying to stay out of abandonment hell. And their fragile inner self is in pain. Every slight made or criticism cuts them, and they go into a rage. They are never going to experience what it's like to feel whole. They're never going to know what it's like to connect and to bond, because they live in constant fear of being abandoned. You're in pain, you know how to feel, and it is hell. You might feel imprisoned by their wounds or your wounds. They are very kindly mirrored back to you. So with a piece of paper and a pen or a notebook or a journal, start thinking about your team and gather them around you and have a team chat. What wounds are they holding? What karma are you looking for? What justice do you want? Are they willing to step out and do some internal work? So when you arrive in the next stage, you're about to play a different game, one where you are stronger and more focused, particularly if you're going into battle with them through the divorce process. If you want an eye for an eye type justice, you might still have some work to do. So I urge you to do some healing, because these thoughts are coming from your wounds. And I'm sure you don't want to hurt anyone or see anyone hurt. So we're looking for a route that takes you to giving no cares. There's a door that says, I don't give a. These people are bullies. They use other people's fears and insecurities to hurt them. They are parasites who feed on other people's emotions. They are energy vampires. They literally suck the life out of their victims. You'll know when you're fully healed, because you'll no longer be hurt by them, or you won't be thinking about them, and you won't want to see them get justice or karma. They don't want you to heal. They want you to stay small and wounded. You are their karma. So start looking forward and not backwards. Ask yourself what it is you really want, what you want your life to look like. So when you start looking at your team, pick wisely. You could add some archetypes like a sovereign or the warrior. You could have a legal team if you're using one. It could be an inner boss. I'm going to give you 2 best friends here and now that will keep you out of trouble, and they are breathing and grounding. I'll add their addresses below in the description box. And while you are getting to know them, you can start to think about who your dream team will be. Maybe start with 5. If you could pick anyone to support you spiritually, who would it be? Who's your favourite teacher? Who would have your back? And when you start to question everything about your life and your beliefs, who would be there for you? And then do the same financially. Who do you respect and admire? Who has a good business background or financial background? Who would you ask help for if you wanted to invest some money? Who would be supportive in this area? And then carry on and do the same mentally, emotionally and physically. And you can have a virtual meeting with them and ask them questions. You could start with what would, and then insert their name, do. I hope you found this video useful. If you'd like to find out different ways of working with me, I'll put the links below in the description box. As I said, you can join me on Facebook in the Divorce Sanctuary. We talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing emotionally as well as physically. I've also got some free workbooks that you can download. I'll put the links below as well, and I'll put the links to both my books, Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'm sending you loads and loads and loads of love.